Hello, can you hear me? We will be starting in 2 minutes. Sorry, I just woke up because, well, woke up like 30 minutes ago. It is like almost 7 o'clock in Hawaii. La 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 la. How's everybody doing? How's the weather in New York or the East Coast? Leah, look outside. It's 7 a.m. in the morning. Like I had to wake up before Jesus. But I'm going to the beach later. Don't worry, you'll see pictures. Okay. We'll just wait a few more minutes for everybody to come on. Aloha, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to do it at the beach, but probably can't see much. It's cloudy today. Good morning, Linda. Ugh, don't miss that at all. I'm here for one more week. One more week, and then I have to be back in New York City. Okay, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Um, should I get started, Leah? Or should I just wait a few more minutes for people? Okay. I guess I'll get started. Hi, everybody. I'm Jonathan Valdez, registered dietitian nutritionist. I live in New York City, but currently in Hawaii. As you can see, it's like early in the morning, 7 a.m. I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey of how I went from Hawaii, going to school at University of Hawaii at Manoa, and then going to New York City, where I have my own practice, Genki Nutrition. I'm a food director, assistant photographer for food and fashion with our premium lifestyle magazine, Guild Magazine, and also like a rock star, still working full time. So my interest in food really began with my grandma, or my understanding of medical diseases. She had type 2 diabetes, and because of the complications of that, she ended up with end stage renal disease and was on dialysis. I even went with her to the dialysis center. I had no idea what concept it was because I was only 5 years old while she was babysitting me, like all grandparents in Hawaii does. And then about middle school, when she died, I got a little bit more interested in nutrition. And at the same time, that was around when a lot of the commodities like beef and dairy didn't have checkoffs. So Jack in the Box had an E. coli event. I think there was two events at that time. And around the same time is when organic came out in full force, especially in Hawaii, and PETA. So there was a lot of fear mongering in terms of agriculture at that time. And I became vegan that was like in high school, and only doing organic foods. So, and then of course I was one of their like little mini ambassadors in high school. So I did all the stickers to be like, meat is murder. And then I didn't want to be a dietitian at first. I started off, I wanted to be a vet. So I took some animal science classes, learning about agriculture a little bit. But when I found out I had to take physics, I decided to jump ship and be like, I don't want to take physics. No. And then I went into nutrition as a backup. So while at the University of Hawaii, I was taking nutrition classes and realized like, oh my God, like all this information about nutrition, like, am I getting the right proper nutrition? So I went to Kaiser Permanente, and I saw a nutritionist, and she's like, your irons are really low, your B12 is low. It's probably because you weren't having red meat in your diet. And I was like, oh. So I took another class and realized, you can still be sustainable while having meat in your diet. And so I continued that path, very interested with the underlining with my grandma having diabetes. So I traveled through undergrad while working full-time as an RA because I'm poor. And I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do as a dietitian. We were learning all the classic things, food service, clinical, and community. And I kind of didn't want to do any of those. But I had no choice. I had no idea because Hawaii is very behind in all the times in terms of what I'm currently doing in New York City. And so after I was done, the only good advice that at the time my director had was don't apply. I found out later because she told me that because she didn't want her scores of not getting into an internship, her percentage rate to go down. And so I was like, screw you, I'm going to do me because you ain't paying my bills. And I tried. It took me 3 years to get an internship. I was thinking of jumping ship again from dietetics and going to nursing like a true Filipino. But that didn't pan out. So I met this woman while I went to a conference here in Hawaii. Her name is Judith Beadle. She's amazing. She kind of created the renal dietetics world. She told me about the MBA coordinated program at Dominican University. And so I was like, what's that? She's like, it doesn't do matching. I'm like, oh my God, that's the smartest thing you can ever do. So, but the thing is, it came out with a great cost. It was like $100,000 because it was a private school. It was private religious school. And if you know me, I'm not religious at all. And I was like, oh, do I want to do that? And so my third try of trying to do matching didn't work out. And luckily for me, because their matching program, they don't do a matching program, they accepted applications afterwards. So I hurried up, got my things together, and I actually got in. So I was like, okay, I'm going to Chicago now, doing my MBA coordinated program. And it was the best decision I ever made because from there, I volunteered like crazy. That's where I met Neva Cochran. We were on the same member value committee at the time. And that was for the academy. And at that same year, I was DTR of the year for the second time in a row. And that's where I really flourished in meeting all those professionals from there. Melissa Joy Dobbins, Kim Kutcher. And so I got a little bit better understanding of corporate world and how so behind Hawaii was in terms of nutrition practice outside of what you would typically see in dietetics. And so, but the thing is, the salaries that are inside the city weren't that great. So I knew I didn't want to live there. So I knew a year before I actually graduated, I said, I'm moving to New York City. my rent's going to be cheap. It's going to be like $600. I'm all on board. But going through the dietetic internship wasn't the easiest because coming from Hawaii, like you go into a grocery store and you're a majority. I see Filipinos mostly or Chinese on the west side. It's just diverse. No one cares about skin color. And as long as you're from here or you have understanding of culture. So going there, I really saw segregation in the city wise, and people would look at me. They're like, "You're not Latino, but you're not black. You're not white. Like, what are you?" And I couldn't believe it. So I was just like, "Oh, I don't really think this is a great fit." And even in my internship, you have to be a self advocate for yourself. I think that was the most hard thing, but good thing that I learned. The hardest part, I vetted for an internship that I was the first to. They even told me I was the first male in their in their food bank area that I was working with. And out of my evaluation, someone said, Jonathan needs to be, it's working in an HIV clinic. It was like a food, like a food bank with working with HIV. She told me like, evaluation said, Jonathan needs to be careful about how we talk to our gay clients. What? Are you kidding me? Like, I'm going to go on a date with one of these people? Like, no, I'm looking for a sugar daddy. So I actually was like in tears about it. It was just, what do I do? Because if this was a job, I would have sued and would have went someplace else. But it was an internship, and I had to brown nose my way out of there. So I spoke to my friend who's a lawyer. Now she's a lawyer. She was at school at the time. She said, what do I do? She's like, she told me, you can't really do anything because they're not paying you a salary. And I was like, oh my God. So this is where you have to stand up for yourself and scam your way out of things. I spoke to my preceptor at the time, who's now one of my best friends. And I told her the story of the evaluation, and even she was surprised. Luckily, she was very compassionate about it because her brother was going through the same thing at his full-time job. And she asked me, what would you do? I'm like, I'm going to quit. I'm just going to quit this internship, do my rotation, and do something else. She's like, you can't really do that. And then I kind of looked down. I cried, like really, not fake cry, I really cried. And I was like, well, I can get a lawyer. And she kind of stopped. And she's like, no, we don't want this to blow out of proportion. I'm like, okay, well, fine. I'll try for a week. I already knew I was going to quit. It didn't feel comfortable. And at the end of the week, I said I can't do it. And she moved me to another place. So, I think that's one good advice. Sometimes you have to network outside of your profession. You get creative. You have so much ideas. You have to be very street smart to get the things that you want in life. Sometimes, and so after that experience, one of my really good friends, Christina Vetta, she lives in DC now. She works in dialysis. We looked at each other, like, how much money do we want to make when we're done? And then I'm like, looking at the numbers, looking at how much I'm supposed to pay for my, on a monthly basis. And we're like, we need to make at least $60,000 when we leave. We're talking to other interns about it, and they're like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. Like, I thought we should just start from the bottom. I'm like, no, we have work experience. No, we're going to do what we need to do. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Brian. We need to make this money, or we can't make it anywhere. So I moved to New York City after I graduated, parted ways. At first, I did in a month. I did back to back. I did my exam for personal training, and for the RD exam, I passed on the first try. And I spent 150 hours on each of those exams. And for the RD exam, when I did that, my score was like 29, and I finished an hour early. So that's what I tell all interns that come with me now, like make sure you finish, you do at least 150 hours of studying. And so after that, my dream was to work with a professional tennis player and be his husband. This is why I was single at the time. I'm going to be his husband, and then I'm going to be wearing on the sidelines, like wearing Gucci, and I'll be on the big screen and be like, oh yeah, this is his dietitian, his personal trainer, and his husband. So I was like, how am I going to start this? So I started working at the gym, Crunch Fitness, and a lot of it's very internal competition, external competition, and a lot of people, a lot of personal trainers thought they knew more about me. So I said simple things like, so someone is on insulin, what are you going to do about their carbohydrate intake? And shut that down real quick. I knew it wasn't going to go the way that I wanted to, so I was looking outwards. I'm an opportunist, and and I'm on a trampoline, and I have no one to catch me if I fall, because my parents didn't have money, my sister didn't have money, so I had to tread lightly and very careful, making educated guess about what my next step is going to be. So I saw this temp position open with my current job that I am at now, working MLTC, working from home now, but at the time I had to go into an office doing telenutrition. So from there, after doing that as a temp, my preceptor, she always asked me, oh, would you want to work from home? And I totally buddied with her. Like I totally buttered her up. I loved her, like genuinely. I buttered her up, always going catching coffee with her. And she said, oh, okay, she was like trying to mentoring me to get into the position. So, making sure I don't burn any bridges, doing a very good job. And I ended up working full time. When I first started as a temp was $52,000, and then when they offered me the position, they said it's flat 61. So as soon as I was done with my internship, I met my goal, making more than 60 starting. 3 months later, we got a raise, and I've been here for 5 years. And my other dream was my second dream, if I didn't get my tennis husband, was to work from home. And from there, I just continue working from home, enjoying New York City life, paying $600 in rent. I have a group of friends that we have a party listserv, so everywhere I went out was either free food, free drinks, so my expenses weren't that much, and totally living the life that I wanted to in New York City. 3 years afterwards, the director who created the nutrition team for the insurance company left because our SVP at the time wanted to get rid of us, and she's like, you need to find a new job. So I signed up for another job as a director position and was one of the final contestants with people who've been in the field for at least 10 years. I didn't end up getting the position, but I do remember someone telling me during the interview was that just because you have credentials doesn't mean you're smart. And I'm just like, no. If you're studying and like 150 hours at least, and you're taking an exam and you pass it, like, you know your stuff. And so I knew at that point I didn't get that job. And I was like, you know what? I just need to be my own boss. I need to do my own stuff. I need to watch out for myself. So that's when I created Genki Nutrition, Genki, which Genki is a Japanese term for healthy, well-being, and just being happy. So in Japanese culture, you would ask somebody when you talk to them, like, Genki desu ka? Like, are you okay? Are you fine? And then you respond like, hi, Genki desu. So that's how my own practice started. As any business, you would have like a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan. I was like, I know I'm so bad. I have an MBA and I didn't really plan everything out because I was still working full time. So I kind of went with the flow with it. It's good if you're having a full-time job and kind of starting off. I think it's really good because you can take a little bit more risk because you have your medical. It's not like soft money in terms of doing contracts with jobs. So I kind of started off doing counseling on the side, and I was like, you know what, I kind of don't want to do that. I'm doing that all day, working from home. Um, Hi, Ben. So I decided that I wanted to do more communications. So Neva Cochran, she's like the best person to know. I mean, she's my inspiration. I always like look up to her, and I never tell her no. Like, um, she she wrote me in doing agriculture, which I had a pretty much good understanding of, or some basic understanding of working, understanding organic versus GMOs, especially in Hawaii where papayas, where Hawaii had a huge thing about our rainbow papayas, which, because a virus came, almost destroyed the industry, and some Japanese scientists came with a GMO, and I still eat rainbow papaya, and it really saved our industry and whatever left we have agriculture here in Hawaii. So, and it was a really good project. It was with Bayer, previously known as Monsanto, and so it was supposed to be a public facing where we talk about the soil, how it's like doing a person. You do an assessment, you understand the soil, understand pesticides, why it's used, and how you ride in a combine. And so that's how I got more into communications. And I said, I love this more than I love doing counseling, especially because with all the media and all the crazy things that people are talking about negatively regards agriculture. If someone talks bad, you ask them, have you been on a big farm? If they say no, it's time to move on. Don't listen to anything they're saying. So that's where I kind of blossomed from there, doing more communications. And we were supposed to do a huge international project, but it folded. And this $500,000 project folded because at that time Bayer was buying it out. So I was like, oh my God. So I was a little depressed about it because I didn't know where I was going to go now. That was going to be my leapfrog to do what I wanted to do. This is all while I'm working full time still. So, and I'm still working full time. I decided a year later, someone from my job, because there's no males at our job too. So when you see somebody, it's like, oh my God, who are you? Why haven't I met you? He said, I want to open a magazine. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And he's like, I want you to be my dietitian. And I was like, okay, so what do you want me to do? He's like, you're going to be doing food photography. We're going to be vetting out restaurants, nutrition professionals. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I looked at his following. His photography was amazing. Jose Morales, he does age-old photography. It was really good. But he didn't do food or food styling. So that's where I was coming in. So we teamed up and we launched it last year, and while we're all working full time too. And so it really opened doors because now I'm going to like Fashion Week, meeting models, going backstage, taking pictures of them, and like it's just everything that you're supposed to be doing in New York City. You know, you go to Fashion Week. So I'm doing that, I'm doing food. And so now people are, like high-end people now are reaching out to us. So I get to do a lot of food experiences that I may have not otherwise do as Genki Nutrition. So now I get to go like Food and Wine Festival with Food Network and interviewing people and meeting like Adam Richman. I met him like a month ago, or Anthony Bourdain before he passed away, rest in peace. So these really things that really came about just being in New York City. And then, and so now I'm currently still doing that, being a food director, assistant photographer for Guild Magazine while working full time, while doing Genki Nutrition with Nutrition Communications. And this is my 5th year. My goal when moving to New York City was to make 6 figures, and I actually did it this year, working overtime. But also, I just recently I got a deal doing medical reviews for an online website, and they said they're gonna pay me $150 an hour, and I like almost fell off my chair. I was like, what? Because other people were underpaying. So, I mean, the really good advice is just keep moving on. If someone doesn't agree with you, it's fine. You have to really understand that if no one's paying your bills, then their opinion really doesn't count. So unless you have like a sugar daddy, um, then unless they're going to be your sugar daddy, then I mean their review doesn't mean anything. So I I really encourage you, even though you might not be a dietitian or you're an intern, you have to really be an advocate for yourself. You know, you're the CEO of yourself, and that's how I really got through most of everything. Besides having like assistance from like Alyssa Ramsey, who was my mentor, or Neva Cochran is my mentor. Um, that is was very helpful. Another advice that I really have is networking outside of your profession. Like I have a lot of friends that are not in dietetics. They're lawyers, they're nurses, flight attendants. That's how I got back home on a budget. Um, and just expanding from there. You know, a lot of people have like, oh, my dietitian best friends, and they're all dietitians. I'm like, no, just like me, I need diversity in my life and opinions, because that's how you understand the trends that's going on. Like, oh, what is this diet that's happening? Keto, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes people come up to me and it's like, have you heard of the blah, blah diet? I was like, oh, I've never heard about that, so I have to look it up. Um, Another advice I do advise is reaching out to publications and telling them that you're a resource for them, so you can do quotes for them for media. I know people tell you never say no to people, and I'm like, no, I'm just gonna get interns, and everything that I can't do, they're gonna be able to do for me. So I never say no, and I still get all my stuff done. Like, so if you are doing your own practice, or if you are thinking of doing your own practice, or even working full time, I always accept interns. I reached out to universities and be like, hey, if you want to do nutrition communications, if you want your students to learn something new, then you can reach out to me. And I got like 5 universities saying, yeah, my students would love to work from home. Um, if you are, what was I going to say? If the students are from New York City, I always bring them to free events because I know they're poor, or at least I think they're poor, because I mean everyone's struggling, right? When you're interning and not getting paid, then I bring them to Fashion Week. I get them to all free events, free food, usually free drinks. So that's like really what my pay for them is, and they get to work from home, so they don't have to travel. And people are very appreciative of that. And I think being a dietetic intern preceptor was like the best decision I made. One of my interns 2 weeks ago just texted me like, I just passed my RD exam, and I just want to thank you for being a great inspiration. And that was like, that was an aha moment for me that I'm doing the right thing. And so we have like 4 minutes left. So does anyone have any questions? Let's see. Jane. Hi, I'm a non-binary dietitian in Buffalo. Do you have any suggestions for finding and networking with other LGBTQ? Unfortunately, the Academy doesn't have anything right now that's exclusively LGBTQ, from my understanding. I mean, if you have to live in a big city if you want easy acceptance. Like even in Hawaii, LGBTQ is getting better about it, but it's not the inclusiveness that I receive by living in New York City, or you can maybe LA. I feel most comfortable in New York City because, I mean, even though I have colored hair, like being myself, people provide comments like, "Oh my God, I love your outfit. I love your hair. Like, how'd you do your hair color? What's..." So for that, Jane, that's what I recommend. I know New York City is very expensive, but if you do decide to move out there, then I can help you out with probably living in a cheap place, paying like $500 rent, hopefully, a month. But you can do it. Reach out to me, just DM me. Linda, love your story. Thank you for sharing. Living 3 years. Okay, so Linda, I recommend I recommend reaching out to your to different sites that you're thinking of going to and seeing what they're looking for. It's almost like a job interview, and looking at their values, looking at their mission statement. I think that's if you want to looking for an internship, that's the way to go. If you're thinking of certain places, if you're thinking of Chicago or staying in and staying in Hawaii, going to the DI program there, I can assist you because I still know all the people there. So yeah, just DM me for that, okay? Thank you. Oh yes, 2 more minutes. Any more last minute questions that you may have? Burning questions. Okay. Well, anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Definitely, if you have any questions, DM me at Genki Nutrition, Genki Nutrition. That's for my Facebook, my Instagram, and my Twitter. Or you can just find me at Jonathan Valdez. I tag myself using Build Up Dietitians. If you are more interested in my website, it's the same thing, www.genki-nutrition.com. If you want to see our premium magazine, www.guild magazine.com, and take a look. We do digital copies and hard copies. So if you're like me, not liking paper, I only do digital copies with them. But yeah, if don't want to be outspoken right here, definitely hit me up. Or if you need any suggestions about where to go in Hawaii, you can let me know too. All right, time to hit the beach. Aloha.